Ooh,
And we're live. There it is.
we're
Awesome.
live.
Nice. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us. Today's Wednesday night, Tech Talk Live, and we got Mr. John Wilburn. He is the No Name National guru, the god, the bringer of the No Name
You're
Nationals.
stuck with me yet another week.
Yeah, and he's flying our flag. Look at that. He's got
It
the
was
shirt on.
either it was either this or take a submarine ride off the coast of Canada, and I thought, you know what, I'd rather be here with you. Turned out that was a good call.
Those people wanted to see it so badly, they became permanent displays there also themselves, you know?
You know, I really do admire them wanting to explore,
Yes.
but I gotta say, you got a dude who has an RC car that has only worked half the time. You had to know what you're getting into. And
Right?
you know what? The coin flip was bad, and so it's bad. It's tough, but this is the thing about risks. If they always worked out, everyone would do them.
Right?
They risk their lives to see that wreckage, and they are the reason why most people will not.
Right? All right, so let's go on down. We got Mr. One-Eyed Cats in here. We got Mr. First Responder, Tom Brown. We got Mr. John Wilburn, who let him in here. Kim, and we have John Wilburn again, and Slant Daily Garage, who let that riffraff in here.
Who are they?
Patrick with most of all parts of Rust, First Responder Garage, First Responder, Patrick's again, and James, Colleen, Bill, Patrick, Dan, Junkyard D, Patrick.
How
Good.
about Junkyard D?
Yeah.
Junkyard D, 144 subs. He's jumped up a little bit lately. I'm looking forward to it. Some of these no-name 500 guys are making some moves. You know,
That's
it's
awesome.
the second half of the race, and they're starting to trade some paint and mix it up, and it's good.
That's good, man. So now, how many people are now? I know this is not No Name Nationals, but we're still waiting for some people to come in here. How many cars are you going to allow in this year? What's your car count?
Well, you know, last year we didn't hit capacity, so this year I'm
No.
not worried about it yet. I will say our registration numbers are ahead of where they were last year.
Yep.
Our no-name 500 numbers are slightly lower, but the reason for that is because so many of them made it and have re-registered this year as established channels. So our overall numbers are higher, but there are still 23 guys in the no-name 500. 14 of them have already crossed the finish line. It's a great field, and we got lots of established channels. I was live with Bondo Billy on Friday. He says he's coming out. I think he's our biggest channel registered so far, but it's great crowd. It's a great crew coming to Sykeston.
Yeah, and you know, one thing I really did like too is that last year there was lots of room. There was still plenty of room to expand. There's a whole other side too. There's a whole, east side of that track.
Yeah. Oh yes, there are things in the works, and there are 92 days to make them happen. And I cannot wait to announce more things.
I see the little orange. Those things have become famous, man. The little numbers, right? Yeah, I like that.
You. See, I think that was what was in the briefcase on Pulp Fiction. It was an orange number. I mean, we really never know. These things predate me.
That's funny because did you make a meme of that where you opened it up? That is awesome.
I did a Rickroll with that at day 109.
Oh.
I've got all kinds of stuff out there with those.
Awesome. Well, there's a few people in here. There's only a few, but I'll get to what's the burning thing that's going on right now.
Oh yeah, what's the biggest news right now? In
the biggest news in Slant Daily Garage Land is that there's another person that if anyone here ever watches Uncle Tony's Garage, you know that he's taking the Slant 6 out of Plan Z, and he's getting another vehicle, so that way it's going to be like his rolling dyno, so he can do other things with it, which means that Plan Z was up for reacquirement. So I have acquired Plan Z. So Plan Z is now in my stable. It's I'm going to pick it up probably after No Name National sometime. He still has to take the engine out and the tranny out, so I'm just going to get a roller from it. But yeah, that's going to be awesome because here's the plan. Last year, I talked to him about doing a dragway car because that thing was really light and with a Slant 6, and it was all set up for it. All I would have to do is just headlights, some taillights, neutral safety switch, and some other safety things. And I asked him, was it registered? Is this thing something you could drive on the road? And he goes, man, I wouldn't drive that car on the road, is what he said. But I'm going to. I'm going to make it. There's a few things I'm going to do to it. Mr. Wilburn is pretty intimate with the vehicle. So I'm going to do some real deal subframe connectors, like the ones that weld to the floor. I want to put in some rocker boxes on it, cut out some of the rust, just weld some stuff into it. Keep the weight down. But here's the plan. I think next year, I'm going to go into drag week with that car, or one of these drag and drive events. And my goal is to run an average of 13 seconds. I think that's doable with a naturally aspirated. Now, it could be automatic or stick shift. It just depends. If I can get a 904 to survive, that event, which I'm pretty sure it would. But, would the engine survive 1,000 miles at, 4,000 RPM driving on the freeway? If I can get some sort of overdrive, or I can get that A500 thing working, yeah, that's what I think I'm going to do. But the goal is that, but I would really like to do it in a stick shift, because that's what I'm all about. But I want to run a 13-second. What's that?
Which stick shift would you use in that?
Dude, I would go down and just get a one from like an S10.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're talking about maybe 210 horsepower, 220 horsepower,
and 2,000 pounds.
Yeah, 2,000 pounds. So it's going to be lighter than that truck. Makes about the same power as that 4-cylinder. It's just going to make a little bit more torque, and that's kind of what kills things. But even then, I do have that adapter plate that I designed, so I can. The world's my oyster. I can put whatever 5-speed I want in that thing. Really, I just want something that is really efficient and small, compact, and light. That's the whole idea. I don't want any cast iron unit there. Nice light one, but an S10 would probably be ideal for that thing. What you think?
Yeah, I'm getting ready to build an A500. That's coming up soon, and it'll be manual valve body, overdrive, lockup, all the good stuff. And depending on the timing of what you're doing and when, it might be something where you could test out the A500 before I put it in my car.
See, there you go. Yeah, so Patrick is saying right here that he says that he has metal if I need it. So perfect. Thank you, Patrick, because I'm going to be hitting you up. Yeah. So yes, because this is something I'm probably going to get, like I said, after No Name Nationals. So probably November, maybe right around there. I'm going to go get that thing. Also, I have another vehicle that I haven't even started on. It's actually customers, but I've had some personal issues going on here, and I got to pull a Slant 6 out and do that before I can even touch that. Plus, I got to get my No Name National car finished up. We got the transmission together, and the Ford 9-inch should be here week, maybe. Who knows what this. It's like the wild west of shipping now. It seems like, what I mean. Guys are going around shooting guns and never showing up with everything. And all of a sudden, one day, plop, it's on your door.
Now, most of the old parts and rust brings up something interesting.
Sure.
Is the S10, does it run an AX15 like a Dakota?
I have no idea what that runs. I just know that we did it one time in San Diego to someone.
Well, if you can do the AX15, you've already got small block Mopar bolt pattern. So if you have that adapter plate, you might be able to make that work pretty easy.
Okay, AX15. I'm gonna put that in here real quick, so that way I know.
That's a 5-speed.
-15 transmission.
Yeah. Then your adapter plate could work the other way, and
work
with that.
Yeah, that is a small. Oh, you can get them used for
cheap,
like $500, $400. Oh, bitching. Yeah, that would be bitching. Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, that's yeah, I was looking at like an S10, or I think the S10s were I think someone even put it here down. It was like a T5. Now I've done the T5s up against behind what's those things? The flatheads. My friend had a flathead in San Diego, and it ran beautiful behind that. It was like a perfect transmission for that. And then I was also looking at, someone even mentioned it here, Mopar Man, I was actually looking at some of the Dakota transmissions too, because, they would fit bitching too. So, whatever's got the most, plethora of parts. But, Dallas was asking me if I'm going to keep the 7 1/4 in it. Do you know if that thing's welded? If it's
I'm pretty sure it's a Lincoln locker that's in it. It's a 410 gear. The thing is, you can't find anything more than that for them. I looked everywhere for more than a 410 for mine years ago. Really, unless you're willing to go to a non-Mopar rear end or like a Dana, what is it, a Dana 28, I think is very, very similar to a 7.25, or unless you're willing to go up to an 8.75, which adds a lot of weight and drag. That's why he never
Drag.
wanted to do it. There's options, but that 7.25, it's suitable for the car. It's just you can't get enough gear for it.
Yeah, and here's the thing too: is I've already done an 8.75 behind my my 200 4R with a slant 6 in San Diego, and everything that I gained by mechanical advantage as far as gearing and overdrive, I lost because of the 8.75. Just turning that thing, and you think, well, what is that? Well, when you're dealing with really low numbers, 5% is a lot. That's a big hit.
You might want to investigate. I want to say it's a Dana 28. It is very similar to that 7.25, really light, and you might check that out.
Well, the drag radials that I have are 23 diameter tires. They're like 225 50-15s, I think. So
yeah,
I think and that will kind of give the car that look. So that way, weight transfer.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So yeah, and then the only thing I'm gonna do is just put a pinion snubber on it, and then lock that thing down and just pin it up and let her eat. I mean, why not? It's
sure.
So I'm actually rather happy about it, and now does the windows, they don't roll down, do they?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm going to need some roll down windows, especially if you're driving in that hot.
Stock style with a strap.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally.
That's exactly what I'm doing in the Dart Sport. I'm going to use the tracks and everything, but I'm not going to use the crank part of the regulator. I'm going to make a super stock style window, even though it's a later model door that doesn't have the vent window. Mm-hmm. It'll still have the strap. I just think that's so classy and cool and Mopar.
Yeah,
it needs that.
Yeah, on my 66 and all my 68, it had that. They're hard tops, so they have the passenger, the rear window that rolls down. And that whole conglomerate weighs almost 30 pounds, that whole cranking arm. The front ones aren't so bad, but man, the back ones, just taking that out and locking that up, I save 60 pounds on my car just by taking those things out.
People that don't think about how much all that weight adds up, a 30-pound dumbbell, that's not super heavy, but you pick it up, you get a tangible idea of what 30 pounds feels like. It's like, do you want this strapped to your car the whole time you're going down the track? And when you think about that, you start getting a lot more conscious what all this stuff weighs. Yeah.
So Mopar Man's got a tech question here. Tech question: putting a 1970 904 into my 65 Valiant, well, the 65 170 CI has a smaller port in the back of the crank, not allowing the 1970 converter to engage. Can the nose of the converter be narrowed? What I would do is just take the old converter and put it onto that newer transmission. That's the best way to do it, because that snout, and also too, on some of those cranks you can't change them. On the early model cranks, in fact, I think it was 67 was the last year of that, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was on the Slant 6. I would just, what's that?
67 to 69, I want to say, was its own animal.
Yeah. So I would just run the I would just change the crankshaft, the converter. That's what I would do. I've been down this road before and it sucks. Sorry. Okay, Patrick, Shane, if you need doors, I have those too. Perfect, awesome. Well, like I said, when I get it here, I'll find out more about it. I don't know anything about it, but it's going to be as simple as simple. I don't want to add too much weight to it, but there are some things that I would like to put into it. If I'm going to run to the 13s, I would definitely like to have at least a roll bar, at least a 6-point in there. That would just make me feel safer. I know that's going to add a little weight to it, but yeah, if you're going to be in a car that's literally 2,000 pounds, I'd want to have a little steel around me. So
yeah. You gonna do chromoly and TIG it?
Dude, no. I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna weld it in myself. You know what I mean? Every cage I've done myself. Yeah. So I don't have a TIG. Maybe I'll learn it and just get one. I just never. Every time I need to do something, that my miller's out there that I have, and you just weld it in. It's good. So. Craig says Dakota's also used the AX15 also. Well, that's good. Perfect. I used coat hangers as a window regulator on my old POS Skylark. Oh, yeah. everyone who's had a car that actually rolls down the window has had vice grips at one time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I bet young people today, a lot of them don't know what the term roll. Why do they say roll down the window, these old people?
Right?
They just think there's a button for that.
It's funny you say that because I tell my kids that when they get into the car, I tell them to roll the window down. I was like, do you know why I say that? And she goes, why? And it's like, what are you doing right now? And she goes, oh, I'm rolling, right? And this was Gage, my oldest. So now she understands, and she get into the car, and then her friends will say, can you put down the window? She goes, no, just roll down the window. And they have to crank it down.
That's an obsolete term that I'm glad that we still have. Everybody here knows what that means.
Yeah. He was saying, Patrick is saying about the spline count on the 904. Yes, that can happen, but that's as simple as you can also just change out the input shaft, which is really a simple, 10-minute deal. Yes.
When you have to change an input, it also gives you an excuse to check out your clutches and band.
And just change them.
I mean, give it a checkup while you're in there.
Yeah, exactly. And and when the first time I was like, oh my God, a 904, I'm gonna take it apart. Now it's like every time the tranny comes out, I pop the pump out and I disassemble it because it's just sub-assemblies and it comes right apart, and then you can just stack it right back in, and I can check clearances and I can check clutches, and it's really a simple deal. Let's see. I got my to-do list. Oh yeah, what do we got? Honey, got my to-do list. I'm allowed to come out and play now. Yes.
I always have to check my phone because that's where I keep my list for things like this.
Okay.
When we're talking about the whole A500 thing.
Yep.
I got one I'm going to be, depending on when you do your trip, Mr. Shane, if you want to,
yep,
that can be in your car.
Awesome.
So I got no problem with you borrowing it and flogging it. If you want to, it'll have a low first and second, overdrive, and the converter. Well, run whatever converter you want, but the converter I want to get for that'll be about 3,500 stall and lockup.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Is I'm gonna go something I'm actually gonna go way high on the stall because you're only going to be using it first and second really, and then it's going to lock up, because once you get beyond that, you're just spinning RPM, All right, let's see what Patrick's saying. Do the frame connectors like Junker Up does on the beat run through the T-bar cross member? No, these ones actually, US Car Tool sells these. If you go and check theirs out, it's literally a U channel, and they're laser cut, so they contour to the floorboard. They're actually the ones that I put in my 68, the Desert Dart. And what's nice about them is that once you get the car squared up and you tack these in, you do like an inch weld like every 2 inches, then you come back and do it again. Then I put in some seam sealer in it. That car literally now you can put up on one side just with those, and it will lift the car up. Where on my 66, which has the bars that run through and weld onto plates, they're not nearly as strong as that. So it's the US Car Tool ones is what I did. And I also put rocker boxes on it too.
If you want to see those close-up Dust Devil Garage, put those on his Duster.
Oh,
so he's
okay.
got a video of that too.
Yeah, in my very first videos for the first No Name Nationals, if you go back to the Desert Dart, I did a thing on putting those in too. But I was still new to making videos, and I would do something like, hey, look at my video, look what I did, yay,
Well, now I got a question that relates to this for Professor B. What would be your recommended method for reinforcing the torsion bar cross member to trim it out for an A500?
Oh, exactly what I did on my 69. You know how it's got a U channel that goes up and over? I took my plasma cutter and I cut that out, and then I put in a plate steel that comes down, and then angled it in, and then just basically tack welded it in, and it's 1/4 inch, and then I just basically bent it in, it was 2 halves. It was 1/2 of this half and this half, and then I welded it in the center, and that way it was easier to bend to get it right. And that's how I did it, and it came out great.
Okay, cool.
Vice grip for the win.
Wheelie King has a pile of 518s and 618s. Well, that's cool stuff. I need to do one of those for the van, but that's coming.
Yeah. See here. Output shaft splines coming from the front of the transducer to the wider to the port. The spline count and it won't let it engage. Yeah. So
A
you might have
65 converter. That's a different spline count.
Yeah, that's gonna be definitely a different spline count.
That's right.
See a daughter school F-150. Looking for any more? Oh, here we go. Are you getting the little model of Plan Z that was made by one of Tony's viewers? Probably not. He might keep that. He did that. That wasn't in the deal. Basically, it was just. I just want to get that, and funny enough, the front wheels on that are actually Dallas's. So I told Dallas, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to keep borrowing them, I guess.
I was looking real quick to see if I could get that spline count out of here, but if you look MM78, that is readily available on the internet, but I'm sure that was before the break, 65.
Yeah. Patrick was saying, yeah, I've installed the US car tool on my Roadrunner, but we completely welded it. I did too. But because it goes to such thin sheet metal, I just did 1 inch, moved over 2 inches, then did another inch, and then came back and then did it again, and then just did that 3 times until it was fully done. Then I just put seam sealer over it.
I got to tell you, though, I have seen some bolt-in. That's not really a thing anymore, but back in the 90s and 80s, the bolt-in frame connectors were a thing. And I just think that's junk on a stick. And my Dart Sport has bolt-in connectors that it got in the early 90s, and they will come out.
Yeah.
And I'll replace them with something, probably the US car tool, but I will definitely put something different in there because it's got to be welded to keep it from moving and solidify it like part of the unibody.
Yeah. So Tom Brown's got a great question here because I'm actually working on this right now for my 68. Aero versus weight. What is your take on removing inner fender wells? Here's the thing. You're going to start air stacking at a certain RPM, at a certain mile an hour, especially if you have the inner fender wells out. Now, it's going to help get the air out even better, but the whole thing, though, is that now the air that's underneath and then the hot air that's coming through, it's not wanting to go down. So usually people have to put vents on the top of their hood to get some of the air out. But then you have basically a high pressure zone base where the air comes across and hits the windshield. So that's the reason why there's a cowl vent there. So sometimes doing that actually is worse. So when you put you got to get some sort of vent on the actual side of the car, or if it's on the fender, up on the top at an angle away. So that way the air can be pulled out. But I have the inner fender wells out on my 66. Now, not all the way out, just for the fender headers. And I had another friend who took his all the way out. And the problem with his is that he was getting air underneath there, and it would really lighten up the car. And so, obviously we're only dealing with 130, 140 miles an hour, but he was starting to get into that 150 mark. And that's where he started having real issues. So, and with my 68 Dart, I'm not cutting out the fender wells. In fact, I'm actually going to be making a plate that goes underneath there, and then having vents on the side so the air coming through the radiator can get out. But then the air underneath the car goes straight back, and it's not going to be disturbed coming from the air from the engine compartment.
Wheelie King about the bolt-in connectors and bolt-in steering box braces. Exactly. It still allows movement that doesn't work.
Yes, agreed. Exactly. And that's the one thing about my 66 is that it's got these bars that go through, and their only support is here and here. So you still can do this movement, and these two planes can move, right? And they're essentially parallel. There's nothing joining them. So I can still once I put the 10-point cage in the car, up until that point, even with those subframe connectors, I could move it. But these ones that weld to the floorboard makes a huge difference because it gets rid of all that torsional load.
If I knew we were talking about this, I would actually just brought in here the steering box I made for my mower because it kept flexing under load.
Yeah.
It was made out of chassis steel. So I took 1/4-inch steel and made this massive steering box for my mower. They're open. The gears are open. But the thing would flex so bad. I solved it. I bet that thing weighs 10 pounds, but it fixed the problem.
Colleen's bringing up something here. Would raising the 318 block a quarter of an inch throw the drive shaft and pinion angles out of whack? Yes, it's going to. But here's the thing: is you can measure it, and you can just go down to Home Depot and get one of those digital. You know, you can get them in the electrical section. It's just a little angle finder. It's digital, and then you can zero out on your engine, then go into the drive shaft, zero that one out, and then go to the axle and zero that out. And that will tell you exactly how many angles you got. Now they have to match or close to it. I think it's within half a degree. And then once you know the angles, I think 2 and under is really where you want to be, because then you're going to start worrying about critical speeds. Because the higher the angle is, you're going to get a vibration. Because, when something, if they're in 2 planes like this and the drive shaft's going here, the drive shaft doesn't actually go circular. It actually speeds up, slows down, speeds up, slows down. And the higher that angle is between the 2, you're going to start getting really bad vibrations. So you're going to want to have that as close to the 2 same angles as possible.
Watch me go from decidedly high tech to decidedly low tech.
Sure.
So what Professor P's talking about is they cancel each other out. So that when one is going through the slower phase, the other's going through the faster, because they're not constant velocity joints. Yes. So when you hear a CV joint, that's what solved the problem. But U joints are non-CV joints. So you don't want to have an angle that doesn't cancel. So my low-tech solution is I actually shimmed the motor mounts on my old Swinger exactly a quarter of an inch to make my steering and headers fit without bashing the tubes down to half their thickness. But how did I correct for that? I just raised the air shocks just the same. And now it actually did. It levels it out.
Yeah. And if you're going to put a quarter-inch block, as far as raising that up, just do the exact same thing to the transmission mount. So that way, if it's already an angle and you move it up, if the whole thing moves up, the angles should be the same, but just measure them. Just don't move up one end. I would move up both ends. So move up both the engine and the transmission the same amount. But with that, you're going to be increasing angle. So if you were having any vibrations at a certain RPM, it's just going to bring those RPM down. So like, let's just say 4,000 RPM of drive shaft RPM, you're getting a vibration. You're going to say arbitrarily 3,700 now or something like that. So just move them up the same amount. But if you're going to have to do that, just move the transmissions as well. Okay, let's see what we've got here. John, can I weld those in for you? I'm really good at it. Oh, okay.
We'll get to that bridge. We might.
Yeah, right? Frame connectors. My uncle used bed frame rails welded together. Yeah, well, yeah.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah. I'm all about trying something new. Bolt-in frame connectors were a gimmick, not for profit. Dodge trucks, steering boxes, gimmicks. Yes, I agree with that. 100%. Just might not be anything new with the folks. Sorry, my phone, my screen blipped there for a second. New with the folks, but did a video that about take a 3-tone Pittsburgh Harbor Freight floor jack and welded 3/16 plate steel and made my own transmission jack. Oh yeah, what I did honestly is I took a one of those was it those UTV or ATV jacks? You get and that's my transmission jack. I just put a piece of wood on there, put it on there, and it goes down nice and flat. It's awesome.
I think a piece of flat steel, though, if you're going to make something, just a flat piece of steel with a dowel to replace your cradle works better than any of those commercial adapters you can buy.
Yes, agreed. If you raise the transmission mount the exact same amount, it'll be fine. Like Shane is saying, don't change it. Exactly, yeah. So just whatever you change on the transmission, do the same thing on the engine. Just do the same on the transmission. It should be fine. But that angle is only like $25 at Home Depot. It's well worth it. And it's magnetic too, so it's really easy. Let's see, tail shaft. Here we go. What else we got? Your tail shaft needs to be up the same angle. Down angle as your pinion, side to side too. Yes, agreed. We got anything else? Nothing coming through. John, what do you got going besides A500 stuff?
Well, that's the biggest one. I've just been doing non-automotive, working on my fence. That's my biggest one. It's been raining, so I'm working on doing top rails right now.
Yeah?
Yeah, not high tech, but it does remind me of exhaust work because you got all the clamps. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Welcome Dust Devil. He just got here.
Oh, what's going
Dustin,
on,
we
man?
were talking about your U.S. car tool subframe connectors.
Man, I love those things, man. I got the whole kit. I got the subframe connectors, the rocker boxes, the axle brace, the front, where it goes underneath the cradle. I got the support that goes for the shock mount support. I mean, I got the whole thing, and man, it's heavy. It adds weight to it, but man, it's good. Let's see. I had something. Yeah. So here's an announcement that not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday. I'm trying to figure out what the time is here. So 7:30 to 8:30. I'm going to be Dust Devil Garage.
Ah,
Yeah. So I'll be over there for an hour. That will be July 1st. So Friday night, July 1st. I'm going to be on Dust Devil Garage for an hour. Come on by, say hi. I just wanted to throw that out there since he came out. I had a piece of paper here, but I must have left it in the other room, so I don't have any of my notes here. So
that's
yeah.
pre-weird hour. That'll be a good time to watch.
Pre-weird?
Yeah, if you're square like me, you like to catch it before the weird hour. Because Dust Devils Live is known for having the weird hour. It hits this critical mass and then starts getting weird.
Oh, so, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Bill's actually got something going on here. He's got a question.
Right,
John,
yeah, I do. And I don't have it sitting on my desk. I've been looking for an ear to weld onto that block for probably a year. And then not long ago, one finally showed up in the mail. Lunar Outlaw Brian sent me an ear off of a 400 where somebody had broken a motor mount. And so, and I could do this at any time. I should try to do this next week. I just have gotten lazy on it. I need to take that. I got a friend who's going to weld that on for me. He's about 30 miles up the road, and then I can take it for machining. It's got a lot of ridge. I really would love for it to clean up at 20 over because then it can run a 380 bore and a 380 stroke. But it probably won't. It'll probably need more than that. But my next step with that thing is I need to get that ear welded on. And when I do, I will definitely put up video of it.
So this is a small block Mopar that you're putting the Gen 1 Hemi on?
No, this is it's a DeSoto Hemi.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
DeSoto Hemi. Yeah, it needs that, and then the block will go for machine, and we'll go from there.
That's awesome. Bitchin'.
Yep.
Yeah, so Dan, unfinished project. You hear you say Shane is buying? I've already bought it. I've already acquired it. It is. Yeah, that's right. I did it. It is my vehicle now. We made a deal, and I'm happy about it, and he's happy about it. So we're both good. And yeah, so it's going to be sometime after No Name Nationals. He's got some stuff to do with it. He's going to take the engine tranny out, and I believe the pump and the fuel cell and whatnot. But yeah, he's got other plans that he's going to do with the Slant 6. So, and like I was telling people before, is that I wanted to do something with that last year, but he said it wasn't legal on the street. But I'm going to get it street legal. I'm going to get it street legal.
I have faith in you.
I hope so. Because sometimes I question my own.
Question: Are you going to keep the 67 grill? The car's a 69. Are you going to keep the 67 grill, or are you going to go with your favorite 68 grill or 69 grill?
You know what? To make it my own, I will change the grill. How about that?
Up to you.
No, I that's a great thing. My favorite is the 68. You're absolutely correct. I do have an extra 69, and if there's any one of our viewers out there who needs a 67 grill, there you go. But you know what? I might keep the 67 grill because then I can. What year is that? That car's a 69?
69, yeah.
So the fenders have got the square light in the side, right?
Now that you say that, I don't know if the fronts do or not. I'm pretty sure the quarters do. The car's a 69.
Okay. All right. So I don't know. We'll it's one of those things I'm going to check it out. We'll see.
The M&M there has a good question, which you got.
Right here?
Yep.
These, yes, because this 8 1/4, isn't it longer? The 8 1/4 is longer. From the center of the wheel.
The center of the axle to the center of the U-joint on a 7 1/4, I want to say is 10, about almost 10 3/4.
Yes.
And the center of the axle to the center of the U-joint on an 8 1/4 is about 2 inches longer.
Yes. So it's going to change it.
But ironically, an 8 1/4 and a 9 1/4 are exactly the same.
Yeah, that's right.
Weird. An 8 3/4 is longer still.
Yeah. Now here's the thing, though, Damon, is that if you change that, it's going to be the same amount of change angle because you're not changing any of the angles. You're just changing the length. So all you're going to do is increase the angle. So measure it before, measure it afterwards, and I'll give you the difference. I believe Spicer, they have an angle finder online, Spicer, and it tells you all about that as far as what you need, and it doesn't go into critical speeds and then half critical speeds. You know, I can help you with that, but it'll tell you what you're looking for as far as angles and your up and your down angle, and then tell you where you want to be. But 2.5, I believe, and under is where you want to be if you're going to be spinning that to any kind of RPM.
But check this out, you change it even more just doing a straight up 8 3/4 swap like it came from the factory.
Yes, exactly, and it won't make any bit of difference. Exactly. Yeah. Because you're talking about such a long distance, you know. Those are things I wouldn't worry about too much by changing those parts. It's when you start actually changing the physical pitch of the engine or the physical pitch of something else. That's where you start getting into differences. I just need your small block fender well header, Shane. Yeah, they're going to be used until I throw that crank onto the ground on that car, because then I'm going to. I mean, I'm just saying, you know, the No Name Nationals. I'm building this car just for the No Name Nationals. You know, some people do it for
half the crank. I know where it'll be found.
Yeah, right. But if I do that, but here's the thing, though, is that I also would like to do the 318 Nationals. That sounds really fun because my car's set up for it.
318 Fest.
The 318 Fest.
Alabama,
that's what it's
right.
That sounds awesome because, you know, there's people who are going to put a stroke in it, but I will build a 318. Like, I will really build a 318 and just have a 318 and just see what it can do. You know, if I can get into the 11s with the 318, that would be awesome.
Dallas Brown in the house. How you doing, man?
Yeah, here we go. I really need those. He says he really wants my 360-1 heads. I'll tell you what, if I throw that crank onto the ground and those heads, I'll sell them to you. And I got T&D rockers with that too. And
wow.
those heads have been set up. Let me tell you, they've they're no joke. So yeah, that's no problem. No problem at all. See Dallas. Yeah, because after this engine, 318 Fest. After that, my LA days are done. I'm going to go to Gen 3 Hemi. I got plenty of them out there, and I'm going to start. I've been doing LA small blocks since the 90s, and I think I've hit where, unless you buy a really bitchin' block, there's really not much more I can go beyond concrete and Milodon caps and gear drive and yada, 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 yada. And then by the time you actually get a block that's usable, you've got, 100 hours of massaging into it, and then you figure, okay, it's on a time clock, 4 years before that block's crack, that's about it. So, okay, what's he saying here? He's saying, oh crap, I probably can't afford those T&D parts. No, man, I've
T&D parts though. I mean, it's like, man, you should be excited.
Yeah, because I'll sell it to you a decent price, man, because I've had them for a while. Yeah. If it's over with, it's done. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's one of those things that, in fact, Monday was a big day for Shane, for me here. I sold and got rid of all my motorcycle stuff. Do you know that?
Wow. No,
all my dirt bike stuff.
About that. Oh, man.
Yeah. It was, that's how long I've been, remember I was talking to you about it at PRI. Remember that?
Yeah.
This is how long it took me to pull that trigger. That's what, 9 months? It took me 9 months. And that thing hadn't been started. I started it twice this year. And the problem is I rode my whole life in California. So, lane sharing, lane splitting, and lane filtering. Those are three different things that you do. That's the whole reason to ride a motorcycle, is because you get to go to the front line. That's the whole advantage, Here, there's none of those laws exist. So the problem is that I start riding, and oh man, I just find myself going right back into my old ways, which to me is normal. But out here, people they really freak out, especially when you're lane filtering, when everyone's stopped at a light and you're going between the cars to get to the front of the line.
Right.
I'm not even thinking anything of it. I'm just do, and people are just their minds are blown. So it was time. Plus, I got 3 kids, and and there doesn't need to be another Shane riding around town doing wheelies, between cars and stuff anymore. I just those days are over for me. Right.
Well, if you're halfway to 96, we can give you a pass.
Man.
Some way to put it in there.
That is, yeah. And they say it's middle age. That's not true, because that would be if you lived to 100.
I don't remotely think I'm middle aged. Who am I fooling?
I'm already over the hump, man. I'm on this side of it. You know what I mean?
There's less left on the roll than that.
Speaking of which, it's funny because I've traded in my motorcycles for my bicycle, right? And the other day I took the kids on a ride, and look, I have a 1968 Schwinn Voyager, I think is what it is, right? It's a beach cruiser with big old ape hangers on. It's awesome. White wall tires, 2-speed rear end. And we're on this big loop. It's 15.5-mile loop that you can do here. And so I got a big sombrero hat. I got shorts on. I got my checkered Vans on. My kids have got flip-flops on, and they're doing 15 miles. And we're passing guys that are in their, their whole decked out gear and their yellow jersey and their pants and all this stuff. And, hey, what's going on? You go right past them and just, yeah, I think I'm doing okay for my age. And it was 95 degrees out. It was hot. So
I think that the uniform, the bicycle uniform, is more like cosplay than anything.
Yes, I would agree with you. Yes.
Yeah. Look at the look on some of these guys' faces at the matches, like pistol matches. They wear their whole garb, with their sponsor bowling shirt and their battle belt and all this stuff. And then some dude just wearing like his, hey, I just went to Hardee's and stopped by to see what was going on, out shoots them. They can't handle that because they're supposed to do better because they're in costume. And the bicycle people kind of seem like that to me. I'm not sure, but
yeah,
kind of seems similar.
Yeah. So, Willie King says, I'm not too far behind you, I'm afraid. 52 now. Been riding since I was 6. Dirt only. Been working through fixing some health issues, and I just can't slow on the bike. I'm going to get hurt. Yeah, see, that's the thing, is that now in San Diego, there was plenty of areas. Basically, where I lived in El Cajon. So 3 miles outside of town, I literally was in the mountains. And there was no one around. And I was okay in the solitude and doing that. But here, there's really nowhere to go. It's that you have to go to a section. Like, they have this thing called, like some Powder Creek or something like that. I forget what it's called. But it's by the river. And they're like little areas that you go and ride. And it just doesn't... I don't know, man. It's just... I don't know. It was just time. When I could get on my bike and I could go 30 miles in one direction and not see another human being, and here you can't go. When you go to one of those places, you can't go 10 feet without someone being right there. Whatever. So, Shane's is the Schwinn Typhoon. Yep, mine's a Typhoon. And then, and I've got a newer Schwinn too, a black one, and that's going to be, that one's a China bike, but it looks cool, and I'm going to put the bigger bars on it, so that way when we go on some rides, I'm going to take that one. So when I'm cruising around town and I want to look some style, I'll take my older bike.
I see Patrick there says he'll be 54 later this year, but can still walk 15 miles a day for 5 or 6 days. Patrick, do you not own another car besides your Duster? Because if you did, you could fix that. I mean, do you have like licensure problems or something? I mean, why would you be doing that on purpose?
I got to tell you that since I would say about a year, I've really been kind of focusing on my health as far as just feeling better. And Yeah, I was doing 3 miles a day to run to the gym and back, but my knees just won't handle that. That's why I started
Right.
doing the bike thing. And the walking thing, I can still do the walking, but the bike I can just get there faster. It's more fun, you know. See anything? Any tech questions? Anyone got any tech questions? Let's see
Yeah.
here. So from
I remember that. I remember the Schwann's trucks.
right. I remember them too. You know what's funny too is that even in the 1990s and the 2000s, they still had the old looking trucks
Yep,
with the
they did.
doors. Yep. Well, they
That
used
was
to
a thing.
deliver. Yeah, they used to deliver to us.
All I know is if they had an ice cream truck in my neighborhood, my dog would be out there every day. He's
Yeah.
a fiend for ice cream.
You know, man, that's the one thing I do miss about Southern California is we had an ice cream truck guy who would come by every Sunday, about the same time, and we knew it, and it was just so much fun. You hear the ice cream truck, it's coming, and everybody's just get on the ice cream truck, and then you wave him down, and he comes over, and it's just like it's like sensory overload. And I was in my 30s, 40s at that time too. It was sensory overload for me, but everyone needs to experience the ice cream truck coming around. I think that's awesome.
I've done really good at my dog not learning what the doorbell is. So if it
Yeah.
rings, I'll go out the back so that he doesn't get conditioned to hear that sound and go nuts, which is great because most people's dogs do, right? But if we had an ice cream truck and it ran every day, there's no way I could keep him from learning what that music is.
Yeah.
He'd be wanting to run out the front yard every day. As much it'd be cool, but it would have a feeling it would get annoying pretty quick.
So, I do have some questions for you about Plan Z. Now that this is hitting my head here, do you know a lot about it? Do you know
A
anything?
little bit. I mean, I've seen it a few times.
So it's a mechanical box. It's got a manual steering and all that. And
Yep.
yeah, okay. And I mean, it's still got like the old school type, torsion bars and all that stuff.
Yep.
And
Has glass. Still has
perfect.
glass.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, I still have my.
There's no structure left in the hood or trunk lid. Like if you pick up the trunk lid, you better pick it up with both hands because it will do this.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's really like there's not 1 ounce of substructure that doesn't have to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's all wired, hardwired, no fuses. It's a minimalist machine.
Well, I would put one of those 9-circuit boxes, fuse, boxes in it. When those.
The key has lightning holes drilled in the head of the key.
Oh.
The key. Well, I mean, yeah, there's nothing extra left.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, you can get a dart down to 2,000 pounds, but it's really, really Swiss cheese to do so.
Yeah, I remember him saying that every time he walked by it, he used to take a file and hit it with a file or something like that, or
hole saw, one of those stepped bits.
Oh yeah, uh-huh.
Yep.
Okay, we actually have one right here. Wheelie King, yeah. Since you mentioned gear drives, any downsides to running one on the street in a car that gets driven a lot? Harmonics through the Valvetrains, maybe. Okay, now the one that I have is a fixed idler gear Mylodon. Here's the bad side to this. It's steel on steel on steel. So yes, you're going to get some harmonics. Yes, you're going to get some problems through it. But the Mylodon gear is actually set up really well on how it works. The measurement literally is newspaper. You take newspaper and you put it through the gears and you tighten it down, and that's how it works. And then when it gets hot, basically there's not much slack in it. I measured the slack. Now the stack tolerance on it was literally about 3 thousandths from back to side after you had after you took the newspaper out. So if you were going to run one on the street, you could get away with it, but honestly, for what you're doing, and especially if you're driving a lot of miles, just run a timing chain, because by the time and get a Magnum one that has the dual slider on it with the tensioner and with the pit takes up the slack. Anything that you're going to gain in that, you're going to lose just in the cost. Those Mylodon things are expensive now. I think they're like $500 now. When I got mine, it was like 3 something at the time. So
dual idler floating gears.
No, it's a single idler floating.
Oh, I thought it was a dual. No, that's right. It is a singler. You're right.
Yeah, it's a single one, and then also too, just getting it set up. It's a pain in the ass because you have to set it up, and there is no like line up the dots type thing. The way that the gears work and the bolts is that you take it off all the bolts, and you want to move it say 5 degrees or say 4 degrees. Each time you take it off and you rotate it to this, that's I think is 1 degree. So it has an infinite amount of adjustability. So here's the thing. You just don't line up the dots and then you're like, okay, well, I think I'm close. No, there's no dots to line up because that gear you can infinitely move around. So you have to get it to TDC. You have to kind of guess, okay, this is the overlap, and then you kind of go from there. So if you're not proficient with like understanding how Valvetrain works and timing events, it's really not for you. If lining up the dots gets you close, and then you can kind of go from there and move the gear, that's where I would go. But as far as the Milodon one, yeah, it's gonna mess with you. But it's a great system for a drag car.
Later, Dallas, thanks for stopping by.
Oh, is he out of here?
Yeah, he had a split.
Oh.
I saw a question. I'll grab this. I'm curious. That's the follow-up. Duster Wolverine, the Duster would eat 727's 20 passes per transmission. Please elaborate. Why was it eating it in 20 passes?
What was the date on that time? I'm sorry. 7.
It was a few back. It was 749. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm kind of curious about that. What was the story with that?
His Duster would eat 727's 20 passes per transmission. If
I want to know what was doing that, because it sounds to me like it needed a valve body with a little more pressure to keep it from smoking the high gear clutches.
Yeah, or something wasn't set up right there.
And another common thing on the 727 is the strut for second gear is so long that they'll bend. And if they get any bend in them, they'll fall down in the pan and you don't have second. Super easy fix, but I've seen transmissions taken out and scrapped because of that.
Oh, the wifey says, if you see hearts in the live, it's me. I'm going to put it on here. I'm texting you live, by the way, right here on my live channel here. So I'm going to text you back to say, thanks. Love you too. How about that? And done. Okay, bye Dallas. A friend Randy Gear in a 350. Here we go. Let's try this one. Friend Randy Gear in a 350 Chevy on the street, and it was never went over 55, and it was okay. Made a ton of noise. Yes, but that was that Pete Jackson gear drive. Remember those? What year was that? 90s. Remember when those things came out?
I remember them well.
Man, was that just terrible. It sounded like rocks were being crushed in like a stamp mill or something. It was just when they were idling. And then you got them up on the pipe a little bit, and it sounded like this blower. And man,
I do have a follow-up about that pinion angle thing.
Sure.
With Colleen. When I said that you can, because I thought of this, she sent me something about that. If you run air shocks, you can, without any shims, you can fix the angle to transmission, but the problem is you'll create a new problem at the rear end.
Exactly.
So unless you were to shim your spring perches, you'll create a new problem back there. But
that's right.
Have whatever combination you use, if you're consistent, you can fix it that way.
Yeah.
There's multiple ways to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Since you here, I wouldn't run the tensioner style because of drag harmonics and extra stuff to go wrong. Valvetrain gets funky with those tensioners at high RPM. Well, it's just me. What kind of? We've never really had an issue. We've tested those things at really high RPMs. I would say, well, street cars 6,500 is what I would consider really high RPM. And what I do on those is there's a bolt that goes into the passenger side, the upper one on the passenger side. I get a bolt that has a hole drilled through it. And that little pocket on a body right there, there's a little pocket that just puddles with oil. And it'll always puddle up with oil, and then the oil will flow through that hole, that bolt, and it will run down, and it will just constantly lubricate that chain. And I've never had an issue with that also. Another one too is that I've on the cam bearing, there's like a little tab that you bolt onto that kind of has that the oil comes in and drips off of that. I've cut a little tiny like curly Q in the cam gear just to get some extra oil out. I was experimenting with that for a while too until I went to the because I was having those. Now I was shifting my car at about 7,500, and those tensioners just wouldn't last at 7,500. So once I put the extra oil to it, it was surviving. But then I had another problem, is that with spring pressures, because I was running about 600 over the nose and about 200 on the seat, that the chain just wouldn't hold up. And I noticed that right around 400 pounds to 425 pounds over the nose is where the timing chain will just, you'd have to bump the idle up so much because you don't want it shaking around. You want to have a nicer, smoother idle. Otherwise, it's constantly shaking around, and the chain will basically not last any time at all. Oh man!
So most of the old parts and rust, are you running a tensioner with that? So you're running a tensioner at 7,100. This is an interesting one here. I think is neat. So Wannabe is asking, nitrous oxide, adds oxygen and gas. I'm assuming he means you're talking about nitrogen and oxygen.
Yes.
And gasoline. Why not use O2 and gasoline? So in other words, instead of shooting 36% oxygen in lieu of 21, right? Why not put 100% in lieu of 36? I think
because the nitrogen allows you to hold two oxygens. You can't have an oxygen by itself. You can't have two oxygens hitting each other. So you have to have the nitrogen. Nitrogen's inert. Yeah. So when you have one nitrogen, N2 it's N2O. Sorry, two nitrogens, oxygen. I don't know on that one, but I do know that the nitrogen is inert, and when it and under pressure, it basically releases its bond. And yeah, I don't know.
That's an interesting chemical question.
Yeah, I don't have that. I could ask my buddy Billy on that one. He would know.
You know what? I work with two retired chemists, and one day a buddy and I were talking about Top Fuel one day in the office, and these chemists who are not car guys whatsoever, right? They know nothing about cars. They started talking about nitromethane. It's amazing how much they knew about it and how differently they thought about it than we do to power an engine. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah. Now I did talk about this with someone about nitrous, and I believe it has to do with the pressurizing the bottle running through the line and how it reacts under pressure, going from a liquid to a gas. I think it's the conversion rate, how fast it changes. There was something to do with that. I'm just trying to remember my head. I do know the answer. I just can't remember it. I've forgotten more than I can retain nowadays, it seems like. Yeah. But Patrick, I agree with you. I had this also too, no problems with the RPM. It wasn't until I started getting really high spring pressures is when I really started, and especially on the exhaust side. Once you start getting, like, say, over 12.5 to 1 compression, and you're opening against spring pressure and cylinder pressure, that's when you really start having issues. And at that time, I was running nitrous, so I had this massive cylinder pressure I was trying to open against. So that's why I kept busting or stretching chains.
I was watching a clip from a live with Darren Morgan earlier today, and he was talking about how much people don't realize the valve is opening against cylinder pressure. They always think about the spring pressure it opens against. But he said the cylinder pressure is a big deal, and he said a fast ramp rate is a hard thing to overcome. So he said they've been trying to slow the ramp rate down so that it more gradually opens into the pressure within the cylinder.
Yeah, exactly. So what I do is I change. I have two different ramps. Intake you can go crazy with. The exhaust though it's that blow down rate. So I'll have really slow ramps as far as opening up. So basically coming off a seat and going to 50. That's where you're going to have your blow down. That's where you're going to release the pressure. And so I also have those slow ramp rates for two reasons. One, also too, because of how much force it puts on there. Two, you can play with timing on it then. So then you can change it 1 degree, 1,000ths, or tighten it up by 1,000ths, or open it up. So that way you can change your blow down at different times. So do you want the blow down to happen at, say, 50 degrees or whatever degrees you're going to have it happen at? Where do you want it to happen? And so that way you can tailor that in, and that's what I did on this camshaft here with this car, is that the exhaust was tuned like that. It wasn't designed for nitrous, but I was playing with different ramp rates at that time, so that way I could play with how do I want to change this by tightening up, loosening it up, and seeing how it runs at different rates. So yeah, that's a thing. That is really a thing.
First responder garage, no, not 21% oxygen or no to 21% oxygen and atmospheric air.
Where's that?
The air we breathe is 78% nitrogen, I believe, and 21% oxygen.
Yeah. Yeah. D150 with those kinds of pressure. Why not run a jewelry belt? Here's the thing, though, is that I was going to run a belt drive on mine, but with the small block Mopar, the way that a belt drive would bolt onto that, because of how it's got that timing cover, it's a pain in the ass. I mean, at that time, I didn't have that kind of money. And the Milodon fixed idler gear literally bolts right underneath that. And you can't even hear that it's got a gear drive on it because it's so silent. So it works just fine. If I had a different engine than, like, say, if I was a Chevy guy, then I definitely would go to one of those, because the way that's set up, that the timing chain is right there. We just run electric drive on that point. So yeah, but I did think about that, but it was easier to just go that. I'm not even going to attempt this name. What? Zonanda?
2B.
Okay,
I've seen him around.
Nitrous equals chemical supercharging versus turbo versus supercharging equals mechanical to add more O2. Yes, basically you just, the only thing that I like about the nitrous is the torque. And that's, with the turbo and obviously supercharger is a little different, but with nitrous, you're going to get that massive instant torque hit, and that's going to get you out there and get going. And you can play with that. And that's the reason why I like that, is that if you're out on someone, they're going to make a mistake. Just like when I raced, I forget his name. He had the blue, like, old Valiant. Is the race I lost with at the No Name Nationals.
The blue old
Dizzy Izzy. Dizzy Izzy.
Grab some people.
Yeah, so his car launched, man, out, and I had to roll into it, and I rolled into it in my car. I rolled in just a little too fast, and it kind of stumbled, but I had him by about 7 miles an hour, but I just couldn't chase him down because of that stumble. So that's the whole thing, is that once you get that far out on someone, they're gonna usually make a mistake. Usually. Well, at least you're hoping for that. Okay, pressure, temperature, different, high pressure. Let's see if there's anything here. All right. That's why higher ratio on the exhaust work better than on the intake. Actually, it's actually reversed. Most people will run a 1.6 on the intake and a 1.5 on the exhaust, because you're slowing down the actual valve speed at that point. That's really big on circle track cars. I used to make camshafts for them, and they will run different rock arm ratios on the exhaust. So they'll run, like, say, a 1.55 or a 1.6 or a 1.5, and that way you can tailor the torque curve, and how the mid range and how it comes off the corner. Because the whole idea is that you want to come out of the corner as close to flat footed as possible without the car stepping out, and that'll give you the best run down the stretch. But yeah, that's on that I always go to a smaller rock arm ratio, and in fact, a lot of people, when I used to make rock arms, would go to a billet exhaust just for that reason, because they'll want to break under supercharger, turbos, and nitrous. Anytime you're putting any type of massive cylinder pressure in there, they're going to break.
Twisted Mopar Garage there, by the way, Shane. If you don't know, he runs a methanol burning big block, big tire duster. So,
ooh, yes, he was at No Name Nationals. Was that the one?
No, it wasn't last year, but he'll be there this year. He's at 228 subs, so he's getting close. You guys want to see that car there?
Dude, you know what? I'm going to go sub to him right now. He's going to be the 28-1050 class?
I think he runs too big a tire. I think he runs like a 32-inch tire. But I want to see that car there. I want to see him there.
I'll tell you what. If it's a race, I'll match race him. How about that?
There you go, Dennis.
Yeah, if it's a race. Now, if you're a second faster than me, then you know what? If you're a second faster than me, let's go at instant green. How about that?
I don't. That might actually be a better race than you might think.
Yeah.
Mean Street Mopar's in here too.
Mean
Mister
Street.
Diplomat. He's just getting going. He can make up ground. He got to step on it. Mean Street Mopar. If you need my help, just reach out, my man.
Okay. Yeah. What's now you got to get after this. You got to let me know so I can start subbing to these guys.
Go to my channel, and I have them all listed right there on the main page. You can check them out and see if they're in your sub.
Well, I'll go there this Friday. I'm going to be busy this Friday. Actually, you know what? No, I'll be here during your broadcast. So yes, Friday I'm going down to Jackson to go see the wifey.
Cool.
So yeah.
While we're talking about Friday, Friday I'm going to be covering the Williamson Road in Roanoke. They have an annual cruise in every year that goes down Williamson Road. They've had it for many years. So I'll be live from my cousin's shop, and I'll be 1 hour earlier than normal. So instead of 7 to 9 Central, I'll be 6 to 8 Central time. From Williamson Road, and I'm wrapping up an hour sooner because once it gets dark, they start shooting at one another. It's in a terrible part of town, and we'll get out of there while we're still in one piece.
And so it's like Memphis.
It is, yes. It's like Memphis down there, right?
Be just like home. Awesome, right?
That's right. That's right.
So we're at the 8:00 hour. You got any hardcore tech you want to elaborate on? Any questions you got?
You know, every time I think about just hardcore tech, I think of you, man. So
okay, what you got?
Well, one thing I'm kind of curious about. I was talking about getting a converter made for this A500.
Okay.
And I was talking with Mike Iben, and we're wondering what stall speed I can actually do. How high a stall speed converter can you make that still locks up? Because is there limits on the size of converter you can get, the physical shell that you can still put a lockup clutch in?
Yes, and in fact, I've made a few because the one that's in my Slant 6 right now is a lockup converter, and it's like in your car it would be about a 4,500 stall. Okay, in my car it's about a 2,200 stall, and because there's not a lot of torque there. But yes, that they're absolutely correct, because the turbine, you obviously want something that's physically smaller so you gain less momentum going around the side before the fluid comes back and hits the stator, so on and so forth. You can only so big of a diameter. Now you can take, like, say, a 245 style, which is like a Chevelle or Chevette, you've seen those, and you can make one of those, but they're going to be expensive because then you're going to need, like, say, some sort of billet cover for your lockup. Or you can do, a newer style and then have it welded on there. But I do know that we have made a 4,500 stall at TCI. Now, I'm not sure if it's on the shelf. It was a custom deal that we just see if it would work in mine. But I do believe, and yes, there is a limit. This is the highest you can go. And with your power, you're going to be making what, about 450?
Something like that.
Torque wise?
Yeah, that should be right on. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know I don't go by horsepower. I shouldn't say horsepower. I go by torque because that's literally what it is. Torque
horsepower
converter.
is just a function of torque and speed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so, yeah, so 450 foot-pounds of torque. That's about what you're going to get out of it. You can put more to it, and then it's just going to go higher. But then, how much clutches, with that kind of deal, you get a twin clutch on there, you'll be just fine. In fact, when I get my A500 finished, I'm going to put this converter into that car because it's such it's the highest stall we can make. But yeah, now you can also do things too. Now you can cut the stator and make it super inefficient. So you can, on the turbine side, you can, I believe, the turbine side, cut that so that way you have a bigger gap. So what that's going to do is it makes it super inefficient. It's going to create a ton of heat, but because it's a lockup converter, it doesn't really matter. But then it's not efficient, right? Now you can add, there's other little things too, is that you can, since you cut that, you can add a positive to it. Now that's going to tighten up the converter, but because you have so much more distance, so there's really no free lunch. You're really robbing Peter to pay Paul at this point. It's kind of it's like a camshaft. You're kind of moving it here and here, but you're not really doing much. You're just moving the power range from here to here. It's kind of what you're doing.
My thought is before you do something reckless and inefficient, just focus on getting your engine to make more torque.
Exactly. There you go. That's why I always ask about the torque number. People are, how much horsepower? I was like, who cares? I missed the mark when I was the one that helped get the converter for slag hammer, and now we missed the mark on that because I was expecting more torque out of the engine with the tunnel ram and a few other things, but at the same time he wanted really something high, super high stall. Now, I know that I made one on intentionally slightly lower than what he asked for, and I did that because they were going to be driving Power Tour, wasn't it? Yeah, not last year, but the year before. Al did. Al drove it in Power Tour. For that, it was perfectly fine. If we had something higher than that, it just wouldn't have worked. So. But I've got something different for him now too, and it's a much better converter for what he wants now. So I'll intentionally say it wasn't intentional, and I didn't do it intentionally. I did make it slightly lower than what he asked because I knew he'd be driving, but then at the same time I was expecting more torque. So because I made it slightly lower, I was expecting more torque. It came really too low. So yeah, that's a mistake on my part. It was a mistake on my part, and I'll own it.
Just don't tell your torque converter guy you want one that freewheels and then is efficient, because that doesn't really work.
No, it doesn't work. The only way to do that is basically with your A500, because you can essentially freewheel them. Lock it up.
Between the lockup and if you have a dump system, that can really increase it too.
Yes. Dump systems are awesome.
If you ever want to see that, Patrick has it on his.
Oh, he does. He has a dump, so he can. He's turbo car. That's actually where it comes from. Turbo cars. So that way, when they're going down the track, they can dump some of that pressure on there, but keep the turbo spooled up. And they can just kill some of the. So that way, they can still stay flat-footed. They can kill some of that converter charge, and then they can keep the traction, but they don't come off the boost. Yeah.
I want mine to stay very vintage. So there's a lot of things like that are modern that I wouldn't do for that reason. Like, you won't see any billet anything. I want my car to stay looking like it did in 1982.
What about your internals? Would you go billet on the internals? Yeah, okay, good.
Well, that's fine, but I mean, there's not much billet in mine. It's got the multi-pack. It's got the multi-spring pack for high gear. It's got a billet strut, but I don't have billet shafts or anything in it.
Yeah.
If I break stuff, I'll reevaluate.
Yeah. Now, both my cars are going to have. They got the aluminum hubs for Willwood on there. So, okay.
Danny likes the sound of the Dakota V6s. I don't think I've ever heard that before. I would love to have the size of a Dakota V6 starter, but I can't. I love the sound of the old starter. So if the old starter will fit, I always want it.
Billet covers. I couldn't find a double friction for the 46RE. How much can a single hold? Might not be able. Big deal of being locked up and not having to lock but racing. But here's the thing: is that a lot of these though is that you just get thinner steels, and that's how you can throw another clutch in there. Plus, they have thinner clutches. So it's a billet cover is basically it's a billet cover, so it'd be a custom deal. But for the 46RE,
I think you're talking about the converter, for the lockup converter.
I think that's what he's talking about. That's what I'm thinking. Is because the 46RE is a single disc, but I might be talking out my ass here. I don't know, but I believe that the 46RE, the converter for those, that you can get a double clutch for those if you change the thickness of the steels. I believe so. The
person who will know that right off the top of his head is John Cope.
I was going to say, where's John Cope, man?
That's what he runs in Haney. He runs a 46R. Well, it's a 46RH now because it's an all hydraulic valve body, but he is very familiar with that.
Yeah, because I deal with all transmissions, not just only Mopars. I do a lot of stuff. It's sometimes
Well, see, everybody's got the holes and stuff they know with tech. And Dallas and I were just talking about this. I do okay on the vintage Mopar stuff, but like Dallas is Mr. Quadrajet, right?
Oh
He's
yeah.
the quadrojet king. It's like, do I know anything about? Well, when I look at one, I can say, oh, well, it's not a Holly or a Thermoquad or a Carter. I know which one it must be. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, but mostly when you're selected a 2.2 Dakota Chrysler, move the speed on install his chandelier. Dude, I gotta tell you, man, those 2.2s, man, there's a whole class of those guys that go to drag week. And they're like the 2.2. They have like the 2.2 on their chest, you know? They're like,
Oh yeah.
Dodge Colt or die.
Those things are fast too.
Did you get let's see here. Did you get the injection question? No, I didn't see it. Where was that? Did I miss it? Did you see it, John?
No, must be by email. If it's not, please repost.
Yeah. Let's see. He says injector. Did you get the injector question? No.
Please repost if it was in here.
Yeah, if it's repost, if it's in here.
Tom Brown's asking a good one here. What's a very quality aftermarket GM 3-speed manual shifter for the floor? I have the Mr. Gasket and don't like them.
Oh, man, it would be an older one. Was it Hurst? Didn't Hurst make one?
Hurst, I guess, is all right. I mean, I thought they were notchy, but if any 3-speed will be anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because it's
wide as a house.
Yeah. On that one, because I'd never really messed with the 3-speed. The only 3-speed I ever had was on the tree. Was on the column 1, 2, and 3, yeah. And reverse is up here. You know.
That's right.
I do remember that.
Wazonda's asking something that looks exciting here. Where can I buy the parts to change first and second in my 904, 274, 154?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, if you want to do it in the transmission, this is really easy. Any 81 and up 904 is going to have that.
Yeah, and
it'll be at 274, 154.
Yeah, and I did find them in a 78 was the earliest one I found in.
Yep, that's it.
And then on those ones, they were closer to a 904 to where I didn't have to run something. There was something different about it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I was able just to pull those parts right out at the wrecking yard, and those are actually in my wife's in the Beaver right now. Are those parts, because they actually went right into the 904 slant 6, and I didn't have to change any extra parts for it.
Well, Zonda, if you want to do it as part of a transmission freshen up, you can. But I got to tell you don't even have to get all the way into the transmission to change them. You can pull the pump, pull the input shaft with the high gear drum, and you can change them right there.
Exactly. Just take that little clip off in the back.
If you're not familiar with it, check your thrust washers out good. Put some trans gel on them so they don't fall when you're putting it back together, and just rock on with it. It's not a big job.
Yeah, it's really simple. If it's one of those things too, the only thing I would do is just back off the band a little bit, but don't pull it all the way out, and then just pop it in, pop it out, and I did that. Basically inside I had the engine out, and I did it without taking the transmission out. I just did it right there.
Sure can. Yep.
It was really simple.
Yep.
Now is he in the States, or is he
I don't know. I think so, because he said something about the Cincinnati areas where there was an event near him, so I think so.
Yeah, if you're in the States, man, just go to any wrecking yard. I'm trying to remember. I think it was a 78. Was it the Cordoba? No, it was maybe it was a Valiant or something.
So you can get them from a Dakota. You can get them from a Diplomat, Fifth Avenue, Dakota,
that's what it was.
Anything with a 904 that's 81 and up will have them.
Yeah.
So if they have some transmission that's just DOA and it's getting ready to go to the scrap guy, that's the one you want.
Okay,
yes,
guys.
Halloween, that's the ones I use. So there's a video on them. If you want to visually ID them, like if there's a guy that's got those gears loose on the shelf, you can even do it that way. I've got a video on my channel showing the difference between the 245 and the 274 gear sets.
Yeah. Bicycle Guy 111. Hey guys, may have missed it, but can I get your opinion on a 4L80E standalone verse of 6L80? I understand the Holley Terminator X. I could run an additional controller or torque management for the 6L. Okay, so I've done a lot of programming for this. as far as for the 6L80E. Now, how that one works is it's got its own computer in the transmission essentially. So you're going to have a standalone unit, and how that works is it's going to work off of a map sensor, TPS sensor, engine RPM, and then it has obviously an output. So you basically map the torque curve. So you're tricking the transmission into thinking. So let's just say your engine makes 500 foot-pounds of torque. If you want to shift a little later, you tell it you've got more torque. Or I'm sorry, a little less torque, it'll hold it longer, and so on and so forth. So you can play with how that thing maps, and then you can change the shift points on them. 4L80E is a little different. I'm not really too intimate with that one, and I've never ran the Terminator Max on any of these. I ran the PCS controller, I think it is what it is. The guy's out of Arizona, but the torque management on those, basically it's just reading torque. It's just guesstimating. You're telling it what to do, and then the programming just tells it. It's really a simple deal. It's really, I learned it in a day, and it worked just fine. So you can and there's plenty of videos out there on that one. Do you got anything on that one or no?
No, I've been kind of following it because that's becoming pretty popular transmission, but
yeah,
I've not played with one, not worked with one. They do look really promising though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Now we're talking. Bill, what do you think of World War II aircraft engines? I love them. That's why I did this.
Yeah. Undeniably cool.
V-type, radial, sleeve valve, etc. I think they're really interesting. What are your opinions? Okay. Now, V-type, P-51 Mustang, style. I love the sound of them because it's like a big race car sound when it goes by, and it sounds awesome. To me, there is nothing cooler than, like, say, a 4FU Corsair with a radial engine, and that thing, B-17, because it just has that big, like, how does this thing run and stay alive, and how does it smoke and make all this stupid noise, and it starts up, and all this clanking and knocking, and then you're going to get into the air with this thing, but the radial is the most reliable thing in the world.
I don't know how. I've never worked on one. They just look and sound so cool.
Yeah, and the sleeve valve. Now, I'm talking about the Hercules. You ever heard about the Hercules? You ever seen a sleeve valve, how those work? Mm-hmm. It's got a piston, and it's got a sleeve, and there's no cam. The sleeve is the cam, so it's got ports. Yeah. So the sleeve rotates like this. It goes up and down, and it rotates, right? And the piston's going up and down inside of it like this. So what's cool about it is that there's no cam in it. It's basically two sleeves. Now they do tend to wear out because you're rotating something up and down like this, right? But man, do they sound awesome. Look up a Hercules sleeve valve engine when you get down here, and they have their own distinct sound. It's a radial, but yet not. It sounds really cool. It is really cool. I like them all. I like miniature engines. I like all engines. I like steam trains. I like steam engines. It just, to me, the mechanicalness of them, I think, is just what's fascinating with them. And the radial engine, to me, is like the perfect engine for an airplane. It's round, perfect. It's going to have 360 degrees of cooling, perfect. You can lose a whole cylinder, and the thing's still going to run as long as it's not the main one, your master rod. But everyone else, that rod's just going to continue to flop around in there. And there's been, stories of people. In fact, I talked to a lot of them when I was younger, who were some of the B-17 pilots who had those things shot out, and they would have two cylinders completely missing. The rod's flopping around. They're watching the oil, and they were just having to shut the engine off and turn it back on because they would try to cool it down because the oil would catch on fire, and then they would cool it down enough. They'd start it back up, and they'd fly home on. And they were they had a couple engines, so they would shut them off and turn them on at different times to keep the plane aloft, and and the thing flew home. So that's the reason why I like the radial. The V-type, I love them just for the power. I mean, that thing, P-51 Mustang, with the way that it had that turbo system, and then the exhaust the way it was, because it was venting all the heat out, it added thrust. It's just, how they came up with these things in that fast a time and turned them around and made them war machines is just amazing. So that's what I personally think. That's why it's fascinating, because you think that at the beginning of the war, we had, what was it, the the silverfish, or what was that? I forget the name of it. It was a biplane. It's literally launched off of a little slingshot, and we went from that to the P-51 Mustang. Right. We went to the P-38 Lightning, the Corsair, the Thunderbolt, the Hellcat, the Wildcat. I mean, just what we came out with is just amazing.
Look how quick we went from the first flight of Kitty Hawk in 1903 to what we had in World War One.
Yes.
Look how amazing. Could you see us developing anything in that few years today? That was amazing.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I talk about quite a bit. 1903 to 2003. That was 100 years. Think about the evolution of flight, cars, transportation just in general in those 100 years, And then what have we done in the 20 years from 03
we don't have the people to do that now
to 23?
No.
Cell phones. That's all we got, right? I mean, them themselves are basically it's a consumer market now. There's nothing like transportation involved. It's just how much can we make off these little devices that,
Yeah, now it's using this to call Uber. See, that's what it is now.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Let's see what we got here. Oh, yeah, right here. I still love that Allison V12. A super old guy near me has 10 of them, and he uses to run a 3-engine tractor pull. That is so awesome. I'm telling you, you hear one of those things at full tilt, there's just nothing like it, Oh, yeah, I love it. And another thing too I've been really getting into is obviously the little jet engines. You ever watch those guys who run the river runs, and they have the little small 2-seating this jet engine that they're going up this river on? Oh, just to watch those videos, those guys are insane. Oh yeah, right here, this guy right here, the GEC J79 turbojet. Yes, it's amazing. Lycombe XR77, 36 cylinder. That thing was that thing was just insane. That power, I think it was like 2,500 horsepower or something like that. It was just ridiculous. The Pratt & Whitney is the one. Yeah, this right here.
Here's something I don't know what in the world we'd ever do with. Tech question: Tesla's use motor braking. Is there a way to slap it in neutral in snow or ice?
I don't know.
That's at 826.
I got it right here. It's I've never been in a Tesla. I never sat in one.
Nope.
The only thing I've ever done for anything Tesla or anything electric car is when I was an electrician, I made a lot of plug-in mounts. The chargings at home chargers, and that's all I did. I don't know a thing about them.
What, you mean you've never ground a cam for one? You've never built a converter for one? Come on, man.
Just never.
You're slacking.
I don't. Here's the thing, man, is that when I was in college, these things were like, that was like 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, right in that range, right? It was when I was in college. This is when that whole electric car thing was taking traction. And all these kids were, the electric cars are the future, and they're this and they're this. And I just like, what does it take to make that car be sitting right there? That battery, the plastic, everything that's here, and what's the life of this vehicle? And how long will it take to replace this? He goes, yeah, but it gets 80 miles to the gallon in conversion to this and that. And I was like, does it? I said, how much did it take to build that battery, diesel fuel, to transport it here, to do this, do that, and then the service life, and how much does it take when that battery's dead? And he goes, yeah, but you drive old cars. I'm like, exactly. It's my forever car. I can keep putting stuff. It's already here. It's the ultimate recycling. That car, I will never have to buy another one. So there's never going to be another replacement of diesel to get that thing transported here, built, and all this other to crush the old one. It's already here. Why not use it? And if I can get 25 miles to the gallon of it, if I drive that car from now until the day I'm gone and I give it to my kid, we're carbon footprint light years ahead if I were to buy something that gets 50 miles to the gallon or even 60 miles to the gallon, but has to be rebuilt every 10 or 15 years. There's no, it doesn't make any sense. And anyone who doesn't see that, to me, shouldn't be driving one of those cars, because it doesn't make sense.
10 or 15. Have you ever had a battery like that, a lithium battery last 10 or 15 years that's constantly being used like that? I mean,
no.
That's just, those things I think are still a pipe dream and will be for some time.
Yes, yes, but here's the unfortunate thing is that I think 2035 California, no more gas vehicles.
I think that's posturing. I think that that'll not happen between now and then.
Yeah. Oh, first responder garage knows right here. Tesla has a snow and ice button. I think even some have sensors. It's heavy so that it's good for the winter. Yes, those things are super heavy. I do know that because it's like a big, skid plate. Oh, Twisted Mopar Garage said he sent you a pic, John.
Yes, whatever this is.
Oh, look at that. That's awesome. You know what? I did see that on Facebook somewhere. I did see a picture of that. Is that his? Or whose is that?
No, that's the thing. I'm looking at it. Aussie Speed Performance Product, intake and exhaust manifold. It looks like it's all still on the same side. They've mounted the coils outboard on the valve cover.
Yeah, yeah.
Not going through. It looks like an interesting way to explore the limits of a Slant 6.
Yeah, I have a fuel injection system just like that sitting in the garage. I have a multi-port fuel injection for a Slant 6 sitting out there. I got it last year. I just wanted to explore every possibility of carburetors before I went that route. And carburetors, to me, a throttle body is considered basically just a fuel injected carburetor. I wanted to explore that before I went to that route. But my first route is going to be fuel injection, no timing control. Then the next setup on that is going to be fuel injection with timing control, which is going to be timing, coil packs. So that way it'll just be infinitely just like that. But I will get there. And in fact, I've got the fuel pump in the tank for that. But I don't know. I'm liking the carburetor right now. So I'm just going to stay right there. That's kind of where I'm going to be. I like the simplicity of it.
Well, Dust Devil brings up a point. How many kids in the Congo does it take to mine the lithium? I mean,
right.
Another thing about, mining all these things, the more of those environmental controls they put on cars, the more environmental controls we have on what we need to make them. On the mining, the production of the stuff. So what do? They send that elsewhere.
And also, too, you think about carbon footprint, and those lithium mines are destruction mines, really. And I believe, isn't Russia and China, aren't they the two massive productions for that lithium?
And the thing is they don't care anything about pollution or anything there.
Exactly my point.
So when we talk about, carbon footprint here, in other words, it's not in our backyard. We can pretend like it doesn't matter because it's just being done somewhere else.
Exactly. And the U.S. only, and I was watching a video of this just the other day, is that the U.S. is only really contributing to 13% to the world's population of carbon, right? Even if we went to zero carbon, someone was asking one of the chief secretary of whatever, what does 13% represent in temperature? So in the next year, what would in this global warming crisis, what would 13%, what would the temperature change? He didn't have an answer for it because it's just another way to charge another tax, Because all you're really doing at this point is robbing Paul to pay Peter, because if we're not mining it in our backyard, it's mining somewhere else. And then they're the one that's putting all the diesel into the air, and you already know that the trucks that are being used over there are the ones that are pumping. They don't have any of that EGRs or DEF or whatever. There's no pollution control on any of those things.
Well, two things. One, I don't want to fall on my sword for what somebody else believes. And two, Unfinished Project is asking if I've seen the post of the millions of tires set on fire in the desert. And yes, I did. And I sent a message to Blake from Bad Tree Production that says, this saddens me because those tires, some of them still could be used. See, I'm the kind of guy who runs a tire until there is nothing left of it. I could get a lifetime supply out of that pile, I'm sure.
So what happened? So I don't watch a lot of news. I just it's all bad.
Actually, I should just get you a little clip from it here.
Yeah. So someone set up tires like it was a dumping tires.
Let me let it load up here. Let you see this.
Kuwait again. Cow farts are the problem. Yeah, not burning tires like that. Not 42 million tires burning in the desert.
42 million?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Don't forget, it's the cow farts.
42 million tires going up in flames in the desert.
Wow.
So that's how environmental controls work elsewhere. That's why we should be killing ourselves to reduce our footprint this much. While where is that? Saudi Arabia? They're burning 40 million tires to get rid of them.
Yeah. First responder garage is exactly the point that I was going to make here. That before 13%. Meanwhile, one volcano eruption is enough pollution than all of us put together for a few decades. There was actually an eruption that happened in the last 10 years. And its little burp that it did was more carbon or more pollution or ozone or whatever it was than we've ever done in the whole history of the human race in that one event.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make sense, you know. It's just a way to control. So I'm still going to drive my car, and I'm never going to buy anything new. I got to tell you, I love the Journey for what I've got. It's the newest non-new car that you can buy. Let's put it that way. It's got all the new functions on it, but it doesn't have any of the bells and whistles, which to me is perfect. You get in the car, you drive. There's no TV screens anywhere. There's no nothing, but everything does what it's supposed to do. I like it.
Dust Devil said that 40 million burning tires looked like Williams' burnout in the burnout competition or No Name Nationals. I will not disagree.
Let's see.
First responder, where are you burying this? I'm going to find that while you're on this one, Professor P from Wazanda.
I just don't see it.
I'm going to find it. I don't know why.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going to go back.
Wazanda there. I'm going to find first responders.
I got it right here. Found it.
Okay,
I see it.
All right.
Got my truck running, and my 22-pound, 43-pound injectors are not enough. I'm getting some 45 at 60 psi cheap and 55s. I think I'll be fine as long as the minimum pulse is 0.7 or lower, so my idle won't be terrible. Okay. How much power are you making out of this thing? Because there's a really simple calculation that you can do online, and this is how I found out what injectors I needed for my Slant 6. I kept basically going down and down and down, and then you can also play with your pounds, and then you play with your pressure, and then it will tell you, you know, at 43 pounds you'll lose this, at 58 pounds it'll be this. So you can play with it up and down, but what kind of power are you making for this thing? Because oh, here it is right here. New Hummer. Oh, that's not it. That can't be it. Is that what kind of power you're running? There's no way. New Hummer, 1,000 horsepower.
13,000 pound-feet of torque.
That sounds no. There's no way.
That'll be 1,300 in May, and that's even.
There's no way that injector would even. Yeah, you would need like 8 of those injectors. A 16. I mean, an extra 8. Yeah, I don't know what you're. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I'm not following you. I apologize. All right.
And by the way, first responder, I think part of the reason I missed it was because it wasn't a question; it was a statement. I'm always kind of looking for the difference in questions and statements when I pull them up. That actually makes.
I'm looking for question marks.
Right.
Honestly.
Really, literally, yes.
Yes, and because they do come up kind of fast, and you're trying to talk
Correct.
and read these at the same time.
Yes.
So I'm looking for question marks. So I apologize if you're asking a question. There's no question mark there. I'm sorry. I might skip right over it unless I actually physically read it. So I apologize.
Precisely.
Yeah. Because it's a new skill. It's a skill set, and I'm telling you right now, to talk, to host, to drive, and to pull these things up at the same time. It's you're bouncing between 2 different brains here, you know. Yeah. Let's see. Wow. Program shutting down bad pockets. I'm gonna see if there was anything else that he posted that I missed. Tax dollars. Nope. Here, he's asking this one. Wonder if a 245, 265 UA Hemi would fit in my US Duster Dart Valiant. They had the same Valiant Charger Pacer. I want to know if the swap before the V8 my Duster. Now, here's the thing. I've always wondered this myself. I know nothing about that Hemi engine, And I do know that the Slant 6 has got a massive stroke on it. And that's the reason why they laid it over, so they can have the lower hood line. What I would look at is what is the physical height of that from pan, or basically from cross member to top of valve cover, and that would tell you if it would fit or not. And also too, just how big the stroke is. And I know people rev the crap out of these things. There's a guy who runs one in that the Aussie, what's that with the road racing course, and he's got one that just spins to the moon. So they got to have a big bore, shorter stroke just for that reason. So you know what? If you find out, I'm definitely interested, because I think that would be cool. I've always wanted to see one of those things.
I've seen it, and I've seen it in an Australian Valiant at Carlisle, and that car was right-hand drive, and it had the steering box on the right-hand side, steering wheel, of course, on the right, but the chassis, the inner fenders and all that structure was the same as an American A body.
Yeah.
So the catch is that where it's a flow-through head, it sits a little different. So you'd have to make up a mean set of mounts, but will it fit under the factory hood and in the factory wheel wells and all that? The answer should be yes.
Should be yes. I would agree with that. Yeah, should be yes.
Can't see any reason why it won't.
Yeah. Bicycle I 111. Also, you guys really like turbines for land-based generators power plants. Currently, I'm being trained on the GLMS 100 gas turbines at work. 100 megawatts in 10 minutes startup. Wow. That's a lot. Wow.
Buff, what are you gapping rings on, my man?
Yeah, that's actually was my next one right there. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to us. I appreciate it, man. That's awesome. Here. I read a Mopar magazine years ago about an Aussie Hemi that was living an example of the ball stud Hemi program. Yeah, there was actually in a very article that I was reading. It's funny you say this, because it was like another style of Hemi, and it looked very reminiscent of a big block Chevy. Did you ever see that, John? Yeah, and it was a ball studs type of, it was a canted valve. It looked just like a big block Chevrolet, and it said Dodge or Mopar right on it. And I was just like, that's odd. Did you ever see that thing?
Chrysler had made a big block Chevrolet. That's what it would have been.
Yeah.
And there were only there's a couple of them floating around out there. There's one that a guy has disassembled. He's been trying to get a massive price for on eBay for years and years. There's that guy. And I've heard that is a real deal motor. Then there was one surviving one that got out together, and Dick Landy had it for a long time. It was featured in the magazine. And then this idiot named John Aruza bought it and decided in his own vanity that he wanted to take it apart, bore it out, put Boss 429 pistons in it, port the intake and grind all over it, and take all the factory finish all over and just make it an orange hot rod engine. And so it exists, but we will absolutely never know what the thing looked like in person or ever sounded like, ever. We do not have one single sound file existing of what that engine sounded like because of John Aruza. So that
not
engine,
to point fingers.
yeah, because of John Aruza. That's absolutely right. That was who that was. The John Aruza in North Carolina, that guy. So that engine is now in an A body. It's in I want to say it's in a fastback Barracuda in like Gatlinburg or somewhere like that, Pigeon Forge area of Tennessee. So it exists, but it's been so modified that we'll never know what the thing actually sounded like, and it doesn't even look like it either. He ground all the wrinkle finish paint and all the stuff that you would have expected for 1969 R&D. He got rid of all of that and just painted it and made decals and stuff. So I think that was defacing an artifact, but that's what we have. We have that one, and then the guy that's got all the pieces of one that tries to sell it every few years just to see if somebody will write a crazy check.
That's probably what the one I saw, though, because I think it was a part.
Yep, that would be that one.
Renan Slant 6 with the chance of cannonballs. Shane, are you a Doors fan? I thought I recognized the Lizard King reference. Absolutely. In fact, when I was a kid, that was just different style of music. I really liked things that were like kind of pushing the edge. And obviously the Doors weren't new when I was young, but they weren't for everyone. There's really no guitar in it. It's bass guitar with the keyboard. So yes, the car is a reference to that because the whole point of that car is that my daughter named it, but the Lizard King, because it actually was she stole a little rubber lizard from the grandparents. We were in Arizona, and they had these little rubber lizards. The actual lizard that is in my car, she just took it and put it in her pocket, and then we had named the car, and it was our first trek out. We went to the zip tie drags, and we were on our way back from Yuma, and the car was doing barely 60 miles an hour. And then she said, "Sandy, look what I got." And I looked at it, and I was just like, "Man, it's a lizard." And then she's like, we were talking about naming the car. And then I was like, "Well, the Lizard King." And then she goes, "Why the Lizard King?" I said, "Because it can do anything." There you go. So yes, I am a Doors fan because it's the Lizard King and he can do anything. So, and that's the whole thing, is that I wanted an old car that could do anything in Southern California. So, yep, I am. All right.
Unfinished Project says, well, it was his. In other words, his to do what he wanted with that engine. When you have something that's one of one and everybody can enjoy it, every generation after you, wouldn't you think it would be a lot less selfish to let that get into a museum and go ruin one of the million others you could have? But some people don't care about such things.
Yeah. I see it from both points. I do see it from both points, and I agree with you, John, 100%, because me being an engine guy, I would like to see an original. If there was 15 or 20 of them, let's take one and see what it can do.
He took the opportunity away from all of us.
Exactly.
For his own vanity.
And then at the same time, I understand it's his. Let him do what he wants with it, but yes, he is destroying kind of history in that. And we're not going to point names, right?
No. Just rhymed with John Arusa. I mean, the story's been out there, and he's gotten hate mail over it for probably 25 years now. Oh, so to me, it's just kind of funny. But yeah. He had a business doing Hemis, Arusa High Performance, and he did. See, that guy's gotten to play with all the Hemis he ever wanted because he was getting them back when they were cheap. So it's just like, of all the Hemis you ever had, you couldn't leave one of them alone. See, that's another thing that to me makes it slightly more selfish.
Okay.
Because to me, I would like to own one 426 Hemi in my lifetime. And if I am lucky, I might get to own one in my lifetime. This guy has had, 100 or more in his lifetime and couldn't leave one of them alone. So that's the way I see it. But anyway.
I'm leaning towards you on this one because I didn't know that he had his own Hemi business.
Oh, yeah.
See, if I had known that, then just leave the damn thing alone. You got other Hemis there to play with. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense then at that point. I agree with you on that one.
All right. Like only 75% of the misery there.
Right. We're installing rings on slant 6 pistons. That's nice about a slant. Guess what? Only 6 pistons.
Correct.
Yeah, but they're big and heavy, man. This is a big ass. It's like a little paint can, Things are huge. All right, we're moving on to what do we got here? Yes, Aussie VG. See, I don't know anything about these VFVG Valiants from Aussie. Do you know anything about them? No.
I think that's what I saw at Carlisle.
Yep.
I think that was it. I don't know enough about it. I didn't get to talk to the guy. He was obviously an Aussie. But he didn't want to be on camera. I wanted to do a piece on it, but he was funny about it. He won't be on camera.
So I'm going to buy a Doomsday Hemi and deface like that more and did, custom, baby.
Yes, Danny boy. That's what we're talking about, the ball stud.
I do have a question for you. Now, I don't do a lot of internet and stuff. When someone does how he wrote custom here, big, small, big, small, big. What does that mean? Is that?
I think it generally means somebody's being facetious about how cool they think it is.
Okay, like they're just that's kind of like saying it's stupid. We know it, so I'm going to write it like this. Yes, I got it.
It means the person who originally said it was being serious and cool, but the person who is reiterating it is being sarcastic.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Man, already 8:48?
I know. Time has flown.
What? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Wow.
Between transmission swaps and torque converter tech and ball stud Hemi and all of these various things, time has flown tonight.
I'm going to look in my inbox here because I tend to look at it. Oh, I got some questions here. Okay, awesome. Well, you guys know obviously where to send the questions because I got a few in here. So cool. Once again, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Once again, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Send the questions there. I'll see what I can do. Obviously, right now I'm still the wife's still in the hospital. I'm going to go down and see her this weekend, but as of plans right now, beginning of August, I think the 1st or the 2nd, she'll be coming home. So things will lighten up my load a little bit. So give it about another month. I know that sucks, but I'm doing the best I can, and that's all That's all I can do. Between that, the kids, and working, that's really why I haven't put out many videos right now. Just no time for that right now.
This is an interesting one that Wazanda's putting up here that you might be very interested in, Professor.
This one right here?
Yes.
Hope it's okay to mention, but the Slant 6 forum is trying to do a forged Slant 6 piston group buy. Details on the forum: lighter, modern ring pack, 10.5 compression drop in the... Okay. Yeah, I did see some of this stuff, but I'm not really sure. When I get Plan Z, I'm really going to go after that 13-second quarter mile. And I think what I'm going to do at that point is I'm going to do a custom piston myself. I've done it before, and I did it with CP Carrillo, and they were really good. And that's actually what's in my car now. I've had them for everything else, and there's a few things I'm going to do. I'm probably going to try to, I'm going to try to angle mill a Slant 6 cylinder head. See if I can change the angle of the valves where they come in. Little things I wanted to try, because you can deck the crap out of those things.
Passenger side to try to get the roof angle a little better on the ports.
Yeah, I'm going to try to do something. I've got about 7 cylinder heads out there.
That makes a ton of sense on a slant, because the fact that it's not a cross flow, when you angle mill it, you're not giving up on either side.
That's correct. Exactly. And so I'm going to try that. And then the way that the push rod's run in one of those, it doesn't really make a difference, because the push rod's got that big open passage there. I'm going to try some, obviously I think I've got the oiling system nailed as far as keeping that alive. But, I'm going to try some other things. Just the cylinder head is the limiting factor on that engine. We all know that. And, changing valves is super expensive. And as far as the gains, I know the factory on those, I think, is 144 is what I was getting. I think I'm getting like 165 with stock pistons, stock valves. And that's just doing a pocket port, getting rid of the, back cutting the valves, and just cleaning it up. Not really porting it, just cleaning it up. And then you can go crazy on it. I think you can get another 10 CFM, and then valves I think is like 180 something, I think is what I saw. But that's just not worth all that money. I think just more RPM and more camshaft will take care of that. So I don't know. I'm going to try some different things and see if I can change the angle of some of the valves, get them more straight up, bring things, at a different angle. And so that way, if the valve is at a different angle, you can, pocket the valve in the piston a little differently, and just see if I can get some sort of squinch out of it. And so that way the compression is not in the actual cylinder bore. It's actually in the head, where it's supposed to be. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not even sure if it's going to stay at 225. I might even run something with a little less stroke. I don't know.
The deck on the head and the block is really thick on those.
Yes.
You got a lot to play with.
Yeah. Whenever I get one, I whack right off the bat. When I do the block, I whack 100 thousandths right off the block, right off the bat. That's the first thing I do. And that, because most of the pistons, those things sit about 187 thousandths into the hole right out of the box. And then the new pistons that I've been using the same pistons and everything. I've been using just the stock Speed Pros. They seem to work. They work so good for right now, because I didn't want to put a lot of money into these things. Yeah, because if I blew it up, I blew it up. So what? I just move on to the next one. And so I've been trying to, keep, so that way there was no change in what I was doing. I was just changing camshaft and cylinder head, intake and exhaust to try to get it. But I had the exact same bottom end. I had 3 of them at one time where they were identical. I would just change camshaft, cylinder head, different combinations than carburation just to see what worked. And then I found the magic combination for me as far as what I wanted. Now I'm going to go outside that and go to more of a racing type of deal and get some RPM, see what I can make live. Did I miss a question here? Sorry, I was going off tangent on slant
By the way,
sixes.
Dennis, I put that up on the screen earlier, that picture.
Oh, okay.
Now, Rainey's 6 with a chance of cannonballs looks like he has something interesting here.
Yeah, Tom Brown, do you have to open the push rod holes if it may go too far? Not on the slant 6. Yeah, it's a massive open area because it angles to that side and that whole port is open. Now, you will if you have a hydraulic one, but for the solid ones, it is big and open. The hydraulic one's got a different casting type of deal for the head. While Mopar laid slant 6 over to the passenger side for lower hood, why not use all the room on driver's side inner fender to have equal length long rudder LA 300-inch floor? Oh, yeah. Okay. That'd be kind of cool.
You gonna make your own intake?
Yeah, I was. That's actually why I talked about last week about getting one. The 1 barrel ones that have the 2 on it. I was going to run one with 2 barrels on it, 2 Hollies. 2 Holly 2 barrels, and that way I can get rid of those 2 outer dog legs. I can basically make 2 barrel that runs these 2 and a 2 barrel that runs these 2, and then I can start playing with length. I was actually, you know what? I'll talk about it. I don't care.
Do you think with the right plenum that you could get away with a forward-facing throttle body on that thing?
Oh yeah.
Get your fuel distribution right? Because in Pro Stock, it took them about 6 years to figure it out, but they finally got that to work.
Well, this is why I wanted to do this. Is that, do you remember way back when the Ram Chargers, how they had the big tall tunnel ram with the rubber hose? Remember that?
That was the first tunnel ram on the High and Mighty.
Yes, the High and Mighty, exactly. I was thinking about doing the exact same thing for a slant 6 and playing with runner length. So if I had this thing set up to where I had the 3 different tubes and it goes to a plenum with the carburetor, I could really simply and easily play with different lengths of runners to find out what, with exhaust lengths, where I could find my right harmonic that I'm looking for at a certain RPM range. So that way it would build torque or it'd build RPM and just play with it. And it'd be kind of fun to play with, But that's actually what I was looking at doing. And I took an intake. I've already cut off the one piece, and I'm going to weld on some tubes and start playing with different things like that. Why not?
Bill McKiska had a question back here at 849 about water methanol injection for his work truck.
Okay.
I had seen that.
Right here.
Yeah.
Oh. Bill McKaya. Let's see here. Could you go and copy and paste it, because I'm going back. Oh, here we go. I think I found it. Can water methanol injection be used not for just performance, but even for engine cooling and cleaning on the valves and piston tops in normal application? Yes, 100%. I used it for cleaning. I think we've talked about this. I would put the hose in the gallon jug, go up the hill. I would floor the car, open up the little valve until the car stopped accelerating, and I would just go up the top of the hill. And when I use that 1 gallon, I put it right into the next gallon of distilled water and then just clean it off. Then go back and change your spark plugs, because you're going to remove everything that was on the piston. It's going to go right onto the plug, and then go home. But yeah, you can do that, and it will definitely clean it. And you could just use Windex washer fluid, because it's going to have methanol and water. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it works really good. It'll control detonation and so on and so forth. Yeah. Snow Performance, I think, makes a kit actually for these things that you can pump it in there.
I'm gonna take a bunch of several comments and combine them all into one comment as a question for Professor P to shut this thing down.
Sure.
I'll take about half a dozen of them and wrap up into one. Are you going to keep the cutout rear wheel openings on Plan Z, or are you going to put them back to a factory wheel opening?
I don't know because I didn't even know it had cut fender wells on it.
It does as of probably a couple months ago.
Oh, really? I have no idea. The last time I saw the car in person was when I raced them at the Slant 6 Nationals.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
That was it.
So we'll find out. We'll just have to find out.
I just got to find out. When I get the car, we're going to, I watched some of the videos. Maybe I just didn't notice it, but, when I get it, we'll do a tutorial on it. We'll do a talk. We'll do a whole thing about going and getting it. So it's going to be a thing. I'm really excited about it because I've never had a dedicated Slant 6 car that I'm going to race. And I'm actually, I don't have any aspirations. I'm going to rotate the earth with a Slant 6. I have realistic dreams. Slant 6, 13-second drag week car that does 1,000 miles and it has a 13-second average. That could be 13.99 or it could be 13.01. Don't care. As long as it's in the 13s average, I'm golden. All right, man. Wow, it's 9 o'clock, man. Anything else you want to plug?
There is one other thing. So
sure.
So occasionally we do other weird lives. I will be live tomorrow earlier in the evening with Austin from Daddy's Money Garage and Nick Van Man and Technician Troy. So more of you guys can meet Technician Troy. He's never been on a live before. And I'll have him on there for a little while so you guys can just get acquainted with his channel. And I would extend that to any of the No Name 500 guys. If you'd like to have a live that's during the middle of the week when it doesn't really conflict with other people's regularly scheduled lives, just to introduce your channel and get a little bit bigger audience, just reach out to me and let me know. But I'll be live with Technician Troy, Austin from Daddy's Money, and Nick the Van Man tomorrow. It'll be earlier than the Pontiac Power Hour. And then Friday, again, for those who were not here, I'll be live from the annual Williamson Road Car Cruise in Roanoke. So that should be interesting. We'll see how that goes.
And for you guys didn't notice it, but the big orange blazing sign behind him says a big 9 and a 2. It's not too many days. Not too many days.
The cruise in is this Friday, Danny Boyd.
Okay.
There'll be 90 to go in the background somewhere.
Yeah. And for you guys who just came in here, yes, I did acquire Plan Z from Uncle Tony's Garage, and it's going to be something that's going to be staple in the show, and we're going to have some fun with it. So I'm really looking forward to it. All right, guys. Well, thanks for stopping by. It's been 2 hours already. Time flies, I guess, when you're having fun. And if there was a message, I did see another one come through, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Once again, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Send them on down. And, we do have T-shirts. I just don't really promote anything right now. But, yeah, if you want to get a Slant Daily Garage in the old English SoCal beach style, with the old wife up there with her assets showing, yeah, right on. I don't know what we're selling those things, $15 or something like that, whatever. Yeah, $15. That's it. It sounds good. Anyways, plus shipping and handling, send it on over. We'll get going from there. But anyways, thanks again stopping by. It was awesome. We'll see you guys same bat time, same bat channel right here.
Thanks, guys.
Next week.
We appreciate you coming out and watching.
Yeah, thanks, guys. You guys have a good week. All right, take it easy. Bye-bye. And we are